Well, hey, you are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. It's so good to have you here. You can find this show on any of your favorite podcast platforms. There's the art, looks like that. You got Apple Podcasts, you got Spotify, you got all the rest. Anywhere you want to find it, you can check it out. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Well, hello and welcome back to Marketing Should Be Fun. My name's Austin Savage. I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko. Kelsey, how the heck are you today?
I'm great. Having a good time.
Yeah?
I feel like we had a case of the giggles before we started, and now here we are.
No, we're good. We're good. I am ready. I'm focused,
Okay.
Chill, no laughing.
It's going to be awesome.
From here on out. This is a very serious episode, though.
False.
How's your day going, though? Anything exciting happen?
Going pretty well. It's very noisy here. We're getting new neighbors soon. I live in a neighborhood where they're building around us. So It's very loud, but that means more friends. And everyone who's moved in so far has had little kids. So we're really excited to plan a big neighborhood party and have block parties. And
that is going to be fun. Do you live on a cul-de-sac?
It's not a cul-de-sac, but kind of a similar type of, the road just keeps going through. They're going to build it past our street. So the street carries on. It
carries on. What coffee did you have this morning?
I've had 2 cups of coffee. First, I had some iced coffee from Starbucks, and then I had just a regular old cup of coffee.
I am on cup 4 or 5, so
I do not know how you stand up straight.
I mean, I started at 5:15 this morning, so there's 1 cup, 2 cups, and then I actually did. I drank water for the rest of the morning after that. So maybe this is cup 3. I don't know.
Okay. What do you think is the most cups of coffee you've drank in a day?
8, probably.
Oh my word. We have a client who would not want to hear you say that
if
they were listening.
But it's actually the worst is around holidays because my dad, my brother-in-law, both my brothers-in-law, and me all love coffee. And so we'll just every time the pot is empty, we just create make a new one. And so we'll just sit in the kitchen and just talk and drink coffee for hours. So it's hard to tell, Oh
man, that's impressive. I don't think I've ever had more than 3. I just drink it slowly all day long.
I would die. And then I hit 8 p.m. and I need another one because it's just I just need that. It calms me down rather than gets me excited,
I can't wait to see if as you get older, if that changes.
Because that changes, my life is ruined.
No, then you'll sleep well. Just 2 years ago, I started to notice I can't drink as much caffeine at night. And now I sound like an old lady. So let's get to our episode.
Ayo. Well, today we want to talk about interconnected content. It's a phrase that we use a lot around here. And we've talked about it a few times. I made a video for it on my YouTube channel. And I know we posted a reel about it a while back. But before we get into that, per usual, we got to do a nice little this or that to start off the show. And so this time it is my turn. And I definitely did not forget before we started, but I remembered now. So I saw yesterday that you were watching football with maybe your family. I would assume it's with your family. Maybe it was just by yourself. I don't know.
It actually was just by myself.
Shoot.
If you can believe it or not, only because it was a big playoff game and it was down to the wire. My kids were watching too, but Matt was gone and I still had it on. So I felt like that gave me some football props.
I'm going to be honest. See, I didn't even know that was going on. So that is the life that I live. This is the sheltered little sports life I live. So, okay, but here's the question. And this is really more of a question for you than for me, but you just moved a couple years ago from Illinois to Texas. Mm-hmm. So Texas sports teams or Illinois sports teams?
Oh man. Well, we have to have some disclaimers. I cannot answer it straight out because it doesn't have a cut and dried answer. Mostly Texas football or mostly Texas sports teams. But I married into a huge hockey family.
Yes.
I knew nothing about hockey when I got married or when we started dating, I guess. One of our first dates was to go to a hockey game with his whole family. So that was an experience.
Wow.
I know, but we're huge Chicago Blackhawks fans and will be no matter where we live forever and ever. We did get to go to a Dallas Stars game since we've moved here. So we would cheer for them second if we had to. But other than that, I would say we've pretty much switched over to Texas sports. I can't talk for Matt, but for myself, this kind of goes along with what we do for a living too, but I've never chosen sports teams based on the location. It's always been like my connection to them, or if I love their vibe or their feel, and just randomly through different like places of business that I've had the chance to be in, I've gotten to know a lot of football wives.
Yeah.
So I like follow where they go and we'll cheer for them because like I know their family. So there's a little bit of like relationship and trust building there.
Yeah.
Which is why I cheer for the Cowboys now. So
so you know some of them that like,
yes, which is really fun. And the Cowboys is just such a fun football team because this is Texas and this is football. So, everybody has to cheer for the boys.
Yes, that's fun. Well, I definitely don't cheer for Texas sports teams because I know nothing about any of them. And apparently it was the Astros, right? Who like were accused of cheating.
Oh, the cheating.
A while back.
That's Houston though. We live in Dallas. That's a whole different ball game.
No, it's literally
the same state. No, Houston versus Dallas is like a huge
Is rivalry. It really?
Yeah. But do you cheer for any sports teams?
Okay.
I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just curious.
Yes. When I was a kid, I actually used to be super into sports and I would love football. Well, basketball is always my favorite sport. But I like to play like, football video games and like baseball video games, that kind of stuff. And I did play baseball from like 2nd grade through 7th grade. So I played for a little while.
That's fun.
But I was always a White Sox fan growing up. And I think the biggest change I've ever had was when I moved to Chicago for school and figured out that like part of it is just because the White Sox were good.
They weren't very, they weren't very good for a long time there.
And so nobody in Chicago cared about the White Sox. And so then I kind of switched and started rooting for the Cubs because it was just more fun because there was actually like a culture around it.
Their
stadium
culture
was closer to where I was living. And so that was a big thing. I feel like that's the only like switch I've made, but
yeah, I totally agree. The Cubs have a really cool culture, even if they're not always good.
But it was cool. I don't think I told this story on the podcast. Please tell me if I have. But I was in Chicago when they won the World Series and it was so
That's awesome.
You could hear like across the city. So we were like in our dorm room, we had our like windows open and stuff. And you could hear, it was like from the stadium, like coming across the city, you could just hear like people like shouting and getting excited. And we went out and we're like just high-fiving random people on the street. And it was so fun.
That's so fun. Oh my goodness. I was this is going to date me, but I was in college when Obama first got elected.
Yeah.
And everybody just kind of went nuts because I went to school in Chicago. So there was definitely that same experience of just like the whole world comes out into
That's pretty cool.
Streets. Whether you like voted for that person or not, it was just like a big moment in history. And so it's kind of fun. Chicago knows how to party, I guess.
All right. Well, there is our this or that for today's episode. Kind of fun.
That was a fun one. That was good.
So now I feel like this is always just that nice, not awkward transition at all, but we're going to start talking about marketing. But like I mentioned, we want to talk about interconnected content. And kind of the, I guess, idea behind this is we've had multiple clients who, like, when we're talking to them up front, we'll use that phrase. We're like, we want to help you kind of like create content that is interconnected, that talks to one another, and just kind of creates this like web of interactions that people can have with your brand. And I think in that initial conversation, like sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I want that. And then, it's not until like 6 or 8 months down the line, I feel like, especially last year, we saw there were probably 2 or 3 people who came to us and were like, I finally am starting to understand what you guys said that you were going to do.
Yeah.
And like, it's really cool to see it in action. And we just had another discovery call recently where, that was like something specifically that the person we were talking to was very, very curious about. She was like, I want to see what that means. Like, what does it actually look like for my emails to talk to my blog, to talk to my social, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's actually one of my favorite things that we get to do for people because instead of feeling like all your efforts are going in all these different directions, it brings it all around. So you're going in one direction and it just makes sense. And I think it makes it easier in some ways for clients too, because you just have a aligned focus and it doesn't feel like your energy is being spread all over the place.
Yeah. I think it's a common problem we see too is brands, whether it's a person or like a big brand, like doesn't really matter. but brands not connecting content. Like I think we see a lot of times people treat their email is one channel, and then their blog is a separate channel, and their podcast is a separate channel, and their social media is a separate channel. And they just kind of like, they have to create special content, basically, they feel like, for each of those platforms. One, it makes it really hard to stay consistent with that content, but two, it just like, it gets overwhelming for you in trying to run the business and create enough content that you end up just letting some of those things go rather than making it all work together towards one goal rather than 4 different goals.
Yeah. I feel like in our talks with clients sometimes too, you use the words like letting, what's the words you use when you talk about like value instead of just specifically like numbers of content work in your favor?
Yeah.
Can't think of the phrase now, but
letting quality and quantity work together.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Like even letting quality. I think you even
like,
say
which phrase are we talking about?
I know, on the spot, quick. I think you even say letting quality of content work in your favor instead of just feeling like you're having to like churn it out just to check a box on like, I got a blog post, I got a social post. No, it should all flow together and work in your favor to that point.
Totally. So if you had to define it, Kelsey, or just like break it down a little bit, what does it look like to have an interconnected content strategy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this, because I was going to say we should back up and kind of break it down for our listeners.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think about just your general content channels. These can look like so many things, but in general, it's your blog, your email, your social channels, podcast, YouTube channel. What else would you throw in there?
Oh gosh. I mean, those are the majority.
Those are the main ones. Yeah.
Then it gets into like videos or like, different kinds of like, delivery systems.
So I would say how it looks, in my view, is that those things are connected and working together. So you're featuring your blog post on your social, or you're linking a recent social post that connected on your emails, or you're talking about, you're directing people somewhere from your podcast so that they're all connecting somehow. It's almost like a giant Venn diagram. Of course, they all function on their own in some ways, but then they should always be overlapping at the same time.
Yeah. Rather than consistently like just using each platform to try to get like sales, basically, like you're just trying to like make these heavy hitting call to actions. Instead, what you're basically doing is you're shifting to start providing more and more value to people. So, if somebody's been following you on social media, you can invite them to take just one like gentle step to start getting your emails as well, because in there you're going to share just some extra resources or encouragement for them. And if somebody signs up for your emails, that means that they are almost kind of duplicating the amount of quote unquote touches that they're getting with your brand, as they're going to still see your content on social, but now they're going to get your content in their inbox. And if they're kind of, interacting with those emails and you invite them to listen to your podcast, for example, if you have one, then all of a sudden, if they choose to take that step, you have now tripled the amount of touches they have with your brand, because they are at least seeing your podcast episodes or listening to them. They are interacting with your content in their inbox, hopefully, fingers crossed, or they are also seeing your content still on social. And so from there, it just like keeps snowballing and keeps snowballing. And so then when you do make that heavy hitting ask for them to buy your course, purchase your product, hire you for consulting, whatever it is, they are much more likely to say yes, because they have had way more opportunities to actually build like real trust, because you've given real value to them. And it's really, really cool to see it in action. So did that make sense?
That was the best explanation. Yes, couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm thinking about a breath. I don't even think I breathed to that.
I don't think you did. I was like, okay, new sentence. That's a run on. No, that was a perfect explanation. And I think a benefit too, if you're a listener who just even has one of these platforms, is you can take the strength of one and use it to build more and interconnect them that way too. I mean, I grew my whole email list personally off of my Instagram stories. So there's room they don't all have to be functioning at the same level, but they're so much more effective when you can connect them.
Even if it's just like super simple, like if you just have social media and a blog, or if you just have emails you send out in social media, just every once in a while, just bounce them back and forth, right? Like not in a salesy way, just like, hey, this is what makes, this other thing special. And I want you to be able to get that value and vice versa.
Okay. So here's a question. We talked about what it looks like if we have those platforms functioning already, and then we start to tie them together. Let's say our listener just has a social presence right now. Do you have a spot that you would recommend they start next, like the next platform to tie into their social?
Like the next platform to start after social, basically?
Yeah. I suppose some of it depends on their industry and such, but just if you had to give them a general answer.
It does. It does depend on, it's like, so I have a whole video on this on YouTube, and maybe I'll link it, but anytime you add a new content channel, you have to think through two things. One is, how are the people you want to reach already engaging with content? And like, so where do you need to be? But then on the flip side, you have to think through, how are you skilled as a person? Like, what makes the most sense? Because, for some people, like, podcasting is the easiest way I think for even both of us to create content, just because like people can tell I can talk forever. So yeah, it's like very easy. Whereas writing, I would actually say I'm a better writer, but it just takes me longer because I like to do it. So it is just something that is more involved. So I don't know if there's an answer to what the exact next platform to utilize should be. But I would say that from a strategic standpoint, I think that you should have at least two. Like for your brand, like you did this, Kelsey, like from way back, like you used to really focus on social and blog. And you, even before we were working together, would link those two things together. And it just gives people options on how they want to connect with your brand. And so I think people who are just kind of pigeonholed in one are just a little limited on that. There is no interconnectedness that you can do. And so I do think it's strategic to at least have two platforms you're leveraging, even if you're changing those over time or, adding on. I would say that that's kind of a strategic decision.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I would add too that if you don't have an email list yet, it's worth at least trying to start one, simply because you own it then. Social, you've seen in the last how many years, just how many changes have come, where when you build an email list, those people, you can always reach them, you can find them, they can find you. And it gives you a pretty easy way to send anything else you have their way.
Yeah, this is random and totally not related to what we're talking about. But like what you're saying, I just saw a page I follow on Facebook that has like 17,000 followers or something. They're like closing their Facebook because they just feel like, for them, it has shown up as like pay to win, basically, of like, we'll post something, only 200 people will see it. And it's just frustrating. We don't even want to like have it on the table. That is a bummer to me. I don't think we have seen that for our clients yet. I think the largest page we manage is like around 40,000 followers on Facebook, and they still get decent engagement as well. But just to kind of back up what you were saying, like, that's true. Like, they can change the rules anytime. And really, email and podcasting in some ways are some of the only, not as influenced by algorithm delivery systems. So
yeah, that's true.
That was a lot of big words in that sentence. Well, they felt
weird. They were good words, though.
Yeah,
we can include a dictionary in the show notes. It's fine.
I was going to say, like, we should like link to thesaurus.com or something for.
Oh, man. It was good. Okay. To bring everything kind of full circle and give you a place to walk away with an action step, we just want to challenge you to take the next step for what feels right for you in this discussion. So if you only have one platform that you're currently using, what could you take the next step on this year to kind of develop a new platform that you're showing up on? If you already have several platforms, maybe you relook at your strategy and think about how you can make them talk to each other. It's just some fun new ways to interconnect them, and then live that out and see how your content changes and how your audience responds this year.
It reminds me of the frequently asked questions episode we did. And when you brought up that the amount of quote unquote touches with a brand it takes to make a sale. You had said that you saw a stat that was like, what was it, 50 touches?
Yeah.
With
like
the brand
crazy.
Or something?
Yes. It was in the double digit above 30. I remember that much.
Yeah. And so it used to be like the rule of 7, which, maybe still holds like weight in like meaningful kind of like interactions with the brand or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's why at the end of the day, this concept really does matter. Is because if it does take 50 touches for the average person to make a decision, then you want to make sure that they are interacting with your brand as much as possible. So whatever that next step is for you, moving in this direction is very, very valuable for your brand long term. And we think you can do it. So
we do.
Yes. Cool. All right. Well, Kelsey, that was a fun little episode there. And it's a fun one. Next time, we are talking about how to cancel out the guru talk.
I can't wait for that one.
It's going to be a good one. Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you back here next time.